Thank you, Chair. We heard a lot of public comment this morning from members of the public who are concerned and interested in what's happening with OCTA, Orange County Transit Authority, and sort of the ongoing work that the commission has been doing to deal with concerns related to erosion in front of their tracks. So I just thought I would give a real quick update so you know where we are. We did receive an emergency CDP application early last week from OCTA. That application covers 4 areas along the track that OCTA has identified as vulnerable. The work that's proposed under the eCDP application is the same work generally that we have regular CDP applications and have been reviewing since last year. So we're familiar with the work that they are proposing and have been working towards regular CDPs for those that proposed work. So I'll just really quickly cover a little bit of what our current strategy is, just again, so you're aware of it. There are 4 areas, as I mentioned, areas 1 and 2. The concern there is flooding from wave action and from the beach side of the tracks. For areas 1 and 2, staff has reviewed and we do agree that there's an emergency at this location. We are currently working on an emergency permit that would authorize rebuilding an existing pre-coastal revetment that's in this location, and importantly, adding sand on the beach in front of that revetment. So as I mentioned, we're working on that permit. It should be out this week, and we will likely be reporting it next month. Area 3, the concern here is the potential for landslide on the land side of the track, so not a little bit different than the other areas. On this area, we've been working with OCTA on an expedited permitting pathway for the proposed catchment wall and rebuilding of the coastal trail in this location. We had been awaiting information from OCTA so that we could move forward with that CDP. And now we have just received that information as part of this emergency CDP application. So we believe at this point the most appropriate, efficient, and expeditious path is to authorize the bulk of that permanent development as part of an expedited regular CDP that we intend to bring to you for consideration next month. We are planning to authorize some of the initial prep work under an emergency permit so that OCTA can begin some of the early removal of a temporary wall and some of the initial work so they can get started. But expect to see that come before you next month. Area 4, the concern here is similar to areas 1 and 2 in that it's flooding and wave action from the beach side of the tracks. Here, OCTA has proposed augmenting some areas of existing armoring, new hard armoring, as well as sand placement to address these concerns. And this is the area that most of the speakers specifically referenced. You heard, you saw that's near the state beach.
It is the state beach.
In this case, unlike areas 1 and 2, we do not yet think that OCTA has provided sufficient evidence, at least at this time, to demonstrate that an emergency exists at this location. So we are continuing to work with OCTA. They're submitting new information. We will be reviewing it very quickly. So it's, that call is as of today. And we will be pushing forward with OCTA to do the reviews they need to do. And we will be expeditiously reviewing whatever comes in front of us and making the call as the information comes in. In the interim, we've encouraged OCTA to move forward quickly with the sand component of that proposed project. And we've committed to an expedited permitting process for that. So that's where we are at this moment. Again, there'll be more next month. We're expecting, again, the expedited permit for Area 3 and likely a report out of an emergency permit that will be issued probably later this week. So that's my update. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, are there any questions or comments regarding OCTA from the commission? Okay, Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. Through the chair, I had a question about one of the comments regarding the 50-foot versus, I believe, 20-foot or 30-foot discrepancy between public beach property and the private property, and kind of how that, what is actually being requested, and if we have any reason to believe that the 50-foot is necessary on the state beach side or the public land side, and just why that is not consistent between the two different landowners?
So it's a complicated question, and I probably need to bring out maps of all the different areas to walk through it, but just broadly speaking, I mean, I think our approach has been to limit the rock to the minimum necessary to ameliorate the emergency and to, to protect the tracks. The intent is to keep it within the rocks within the right-of-way, again, generally speaking. And part of what we are working towards is understanding what exactly the footprint that they're proposing will look like, requiring monitoring pre and post to confirm all that. If it turns out that there is rock that's placed, for example, outside of the right-of-way or beyond the footprint that we are approving, that will have to be addressed in the follow-on permit, and that would be subject to additional mitigation or other potentially even removal, depending on the situation.
Great, thanks so much.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, I just want to thank you, Executive Director Huckleberry, and the staff for being on top of this and really trying to work towards, getting OCTA to kind of move forward with some of the necessary mitigations to reduce erosion and try to prevent the tracks from going into the ocean. And, my hope is that we can continue to figure out ways that we can use natural mitigations as opposed to rock revetment, just knowing that it increases erosion over time. And I think it'd be helpful at the next meeting if we can have some slides just to show the areas, because it'll be helpful for people to be able to visualize where we're actually talking about putting rock versus where we really want to try to encourage sand replenishment over rock revetment.
And through the chair, if I might,
Sure.
I just want to make sure I emphasize that for areas 1 and 2, where we are looking at doing an emergency permit, the proposal does include sand placement. And so our emergency permit authorizes and requires that sand placement be accomplished. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We agree sand placement is a critical component, even if we agree rock is necessary in certain areas to protect the track, but there may be other locations where sand placement might be a standalone solution. We're still looking into that for other areas.
Thank you so much. And then, does that conclude the Executive Director's report?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Before we move on, I do also just want to acknowledge Meg Vaughn's 35